So I finally finished A Song of Ice and Fire. Finished the last book in the series. At least that's out. Hopefully, ones will be released eventually, right? Well, I read A Dance of Dragons. This video is a little bit longer because I wanted to take more time with this book to just kind of really enjoy it and experience it and see what it has to offer. If you watched my Feast for Coat Crows review, that's something I learned with that one was once I kind of started taking my time with it and really just delving into it, I just started to enjoy it a lot more. And so that's what I wanted to do with this one. So I gave myself an extra month to read it, and I'm really glad that I did that because it let me take my time a little bit more and just immerse myself with the story. And I could take it like one page at a time. I could take it a lot slower. And I think that really led me to enjoy it a lot more. Instead of trying to finish it for the sake of finishing it, I was able to just really enjoy every page I was reading and every POV and every character and yeah, I was just able to enjoy it a lot more is what I found. Downsides of that though is I feel like I don't remember a lot of, like I remember it, but I have to go further back in my memory to recall like the first half of the book and even by the time I'm recording this, I finished it about a week ago or just under a week ago. So I have to like search a lot further back in my memory to try to recall for this video. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. I know a lot of people, it's like Dance for Dragons and Feast for Crows are like the bottom of their list. And okay, I can see why. And Dance for Dragons definitely isn't like the top of my list. I think I'll make another separate ranking video in the future, but I think it was still good. I still really enjoyed this, even the Feast for Crows. Once I started to kind of slow down with that one, I really enjoyed these last two. And I think that's the best way to kind of read this series, is just because, I mean, they're two books that aren't released and might not ever be released. And so if you're reading just to finish it, you really can't do that anyway, just because those last two books aren't released and might not ever be. So you can't really read it in that way. And it's more meant for just enjoying page by page where you're at, taking each moment and just enjoying it that way. And I think that's the best way to read A Song of Ice and Fire, is to take it slowly and just really enjoy what you're reading. And that's just the most enjoyment I was able to, like, I was able to get the most enjoyment by reading it that way, if that makes sense. I really like this book though. I think it's definitely better than A Feast for Crows, and I think that's just because I like a lot more of the POV characters in this one. I like John's POV. I can't even remember who else was in here now. Davos was in the first half, and I like him as a character. I mean, Daenerys, it really depends what her story is, if I like her POVs. But the whole thing happening in Meereen in this book and all that, I actually found that fairly entertaining. And then at the end, when we get some POVs of Barristan Selmy, I loved those chapters. Those ones went hard, I will say. And it's really interesting because, like, while watching the show, I really didn't like Barristan Selmy. And I was very much like, I liked Jorah Mormont more than I did Barristan Selmy in the show. And like then when Selmy dies in the show, I was like, oh, okay, nice, you know, because I really just didn't care for him in the show much, because in the show it seemed like he just kind of showed up and tried to take Jorah Mormont's spot, you know. But in the books, I have the opposite. I feel the opposite about them. I still like Jorah Mormont is all right, but I don't like him as much. I find myself liking Barristan Selmy a lot more in the books. So when Selmy comes in, I mean, and he comes in a few books ago. He doesn't come in this book, but when he comes in, I don't know, almost like replaces Jorah Mormont, I'm kind of fine with it, just because I like Selmy more in the books. And that just goes further with this book, because Selmy actually has some POV chapters, and they were really good. Yeah, so I really liked the Barristan Selmy POV chapters. Oh, Tyrion is another POV. Love Tyrion, of course. I don't know who can't. He was my favorite character in the show until they stopped doing anything with him. But he is what he lacks for in the later half of the show, he very much makes up for in this book. So that was nice. I still really like Tyrion. I really like his dynamic with Penny, the other dwarf. And I just think, I don't know, I really like that pair. and I think it's a very interesting dynamic they have. Um, that said, I should probably talk about Tyrion a bit more and kind of what he's going through. Like, because from what I'd heard that he very much hates his family in this book and very much wants revenge, which, yeah, he does, but I was kind of expecting that part to be ramped up more. I feel like more in this book, he's more like more depressed, which is kind of what we got in the show, and so I was expecting the books to be drastically different from that, just from what I've heard. Um, but I found his kind of mindset being more similar to what he is in the show at this point than I thought it would. And I just think it's really interesting what the effects of him killing Tywin had on him. Because, like, yes, he didn't like Tywin. Tywin was a terrible father, so Tyrion killed him, like, and that's very justifiable why he killed him and all that. But it's very interesting to see the effects that has on him, just because he still ponders it. And like in the beginning, he's always asking everyone, where do whores go? Because that's the last thing Tywin told him before Tyrion shot him. And just, I think that's interesting because even if you have a horrible father, even if you killed him and even if it's justified or something, like, surely that's still gonna leave a mark on you and your mentality and your person. And so I'm very glad that they showed that in this book. And that's just one thing I love about this series is everything has a consequence, as it should and as it would in real life, as other books kind of just glaze over that part. But with A Song of Ice and Fire, every small moment has consequences that can kind of sometimes be huge. I mean, in the case like of the Red Wedding, that's a huge consequence for Robb marrying someone he wasn't promised to. And that's just one thing I love about the series as a whole, is the big consequences. The one thing with Tyrion that I wanted from this book is I really wanted him and Daenerys to meet. Like, if that ended like that, I would have been satisfied. That's what I was hoping through the whole book. And so when they didn't, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it got to a point where I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, I don't think they're gonna actually meet by the end of this. And that was just the one thing I was hoping for, is I just wanted them to meet. And I guess that's one complaint I can have. I mean, and I've heard other people kind of complain about this, but like, A Dance of Dragons kind of feels, in some ways, it kind of feels unfinished. And of course, you know, there are 2 more books in the series, of course it's not finished, but this book as a whole, in a few areas, it feels like maybe it could have had an extra chapter or 2. Like, a few of the characters could have had an extra few chapters, like Tyrion in this case, I don't know. Like, I think Tyrion and Daenerys finally meeting at the end, I think that could have been a great way to close Tyrion's story, at least. Dany is on a completely different theme right now. And her being taken off by Drogon to, I don't remember what she called it, but that mountain, I don't remember what she called it, but Drogon's lair or whatever. And then it finally ends off with her having, being found by the one Khal, I don't remember his name either, but the Dothraki. And with Dany's story and where it ended, it makes sense that she hadn't met Tyrion yet. I mean, and they kind of did, because Tyrion was in the fighting pits and she was there before she was taken. So, like, they kind of did, but not really. But it just kind of makes sense they didn't make, that they didn't meet by the end of this book, just because of what was happening with Dany at the time. And her being, you know, taken by Drogon and found by the Dothraki. And, because, like, that was probably a decent place to end her character in this book, I think. Cause it's kind of like a cliffhanger for the next one. And yeah. Oh, one thing that comes to mind, Quentin Martell and how he died. I think it was probably good that he died, and very much because plot armor doesn't really exist in this series, and so having him being brought alive by when he tries to free the dragons, I think kind of stays true to that and how consequences have actions. But gosh darn, I did not think he would die, and I didn't want him to die. I was very much rooting for him at the end, and I very much did not want him to die, and so I was very mixed when he did die. Yeah, I was very troubled when he died, because I didn't want him to. It makes sense that he did, though, of course, if you're gonna try to do what he did, you know, trying to free the dragons and with a very minimal plan, that definitely 99% of the time will get you killed. So it makes sense that he died. I was very much rooting for him, and I really didn't want him to die. I really wanted him to make it through that. And I was actually very shocked when he did die. Like, because he ends his chapter saying, like, oh, now I'm on fire, essentially. And then his chapter ends. And so I was thinking, oh, he's gonna go run into, like, he's gonna find a pool of water and just jump into, and he's gonna be, like, scarred and stuff, but he's still gonna be alive. That's what I was thinking. And then it cuts with the Barristan chapter, and he's just dead, a complete like corpse, completely burnt, and he's dead. And that just put that speculation to an end in a very impactful way. And yeah, I was disappointment's not the right word, because it was right that he died. He shouldn't have survived trying to feed the dragons like that, but I very much thought there was a lot more in store for his character, and I thought there was a lot more to explore with Quentyn. I just thought there was a lot more to his character and a lot more that we could see and explore with him. And so when he died, it just like all that was suddenly gone, and I'm like, oh, great. I mean, and a lot of it still probably could be explored with Arianne and Dorne. I haven't read the sample Winds of Winter chapters, and I honestly, I don't think I will. I don't want to. I kind of want to keep them surprised, you know? I don't want to read them. I don't know, maybe I will eventually, but as of right now, I don't plan on reading them. So yeah, that's what I felt about Quentyn. Jon Snow, I guess I should probably also remark on, loved his chapters, what he's doing on the wall with the wildlings and everything. I just loved all that. And then of course, with the pink letter and then how he dies, that has a lot to talk about. There's a lot there. He died in a very different way than he did the show. And while it was still good in the books, I hope this isn't a hot take, but I think it was better in the show. I hope that's not a hot take. I just, how it was executed in the show, and they're both very similar. I think if the show added one or two details, like if the show added the pink letter or John's last word being ghost, I think that would have solidified how he died in the show. But it was just like, I don't know, so sudden in the books. I mean, and I knew he died, because I'd seen the show, two, I've like heard bits and pieces about the book series. You know, I've tried to avoid spoilers, but I can't avoid them all. And I guess it wasn't concretely confirmed that he died in this book. Like, it wasn't totally spoiled for me, but using context clues, I could kind of figure out, yeah, I'm pretty sure he dies at the end of this book. But yeah, back to it being like sudden in the books. I I feel like it was sudden just because what he talked to the men of the Night's Watch and the wildlings, saying how he's gonna go after Ramsay, and then he goes out and there's a whole thing going on with the giant. Don't remember the giant's name. And then it's just like all of a sudden, like this guy's knife and he slits Jon's throat. And I actually had to go back and read that because I just wasn't expecting it. And so I had to go back and read that. I was like, wait, is this right? Did I read this correctly? So I like went back the paragraph or two and I read through it again. And I was like, oh, this is it. Which is fine. I think it was perfect in the books. I just like how it was done in the show a bit more, I think. Because even in the books, they had, you know, the people came and they stabbed him and they said for the watch. But I think the thing I liked about the show is that in the show, it was obviously planned. Like, I don't remember any of the guys' names. What, there's Ollie and Thorne and, you know, the other few. It was obvious that they had planned to kill Jon, while in the book, it seemed improvised. Like, kind of spur of the moment. It's like, okay, this is like Jon going to face Ramsay. That's the last line, and then it was just kind of like spur of the moment. Okay, we have to kill him. That's kind of more what it felt like, and I think that's the one reason why I like it better in the show, just because it was obviously planned, and I just think it was better that way. Thus said, I think Jon's last words being ghost is perfect, and with the epilogue in it, or no, not the epilogue, the prologue in I almost said Winds of Winter, in A Dance of Dragons, I think it's fairly obvious that Jon is going to come back, or I should say isn't actually dead, just because of all the clues and Easter eggs. Because like in the prologue, it's all about the warg dying and shifting into, I think he actually shifts into a girl, but you know, shifting his conscious into another creature. That's all what the prologue is all about. And we didn't see anything about that character, like really anything of that prologue. I think there was a little Easter egg to it actually. I think it was in a Bran chapter. Because he said like they're being chased by wolves or something, and I'm pretty sure it's the same wolves as the guy in the prologue, because he was talking about wolves and stuff. But that's kind of like the prologue just kind of leaves at that, and then Jon's last words being ghost. I think it's fairly obvious that Jon isn't technically dead, and he just shifted his conscious into ghost, and then that's how he's gonna come back somehow. I think Like I'm 99% sure of that. So I don't think John's dead. I'm pretty sure that's not a very controversial take. Um, but that part was done beautifully, and the pink letter. I don't even know what to think about that. I've already like watched a few theory videos about it and everything, uh, so I'm aware of quite a few of the theories and all that, and it's just a lot to unpack because like there's just a lot going on with it. Like saying Stannis is dead, they defeated his army. Ramsay wants Reek and his wife back, and calling John like bastard. I mean, because there's speculation of who actually wrote it and what and there's actually true. Personally, I kind of think Ramsay actually wrote it, and I just think not everything he said in it is true. I don't know. There's plenty of things to indicate that Ramsay didn't write it because like the letter was different from the previous two Ramsay had sent, and like the seal was different. It was just a blob of pink wax and it wasn't stamped or anything. And him saying like bastard a ton, because it's mentioned that Ramsay doesn't like the word bastard, so you'd think he wouldn't really use it either. Um, so there is plenty of evidence to suggest that it wasn't Ramsay that actually wrote it. Personally, I think it was Ramsay. Like maybe there are some simple, like probably simple explanations why those things don't match up with his previous two letters. But just because like looking at everyone, it could have been like there's Ramsay, it could have been Stannis, I guess. It could have been Mance, maybe. Or I've seen some people suggest what's his name? Is it Manderly? I think. And yeah, it could be anything. Okay, it can't be Stannis. I'm positive it's not Stannis. That just does not seem like a Stannis move to write a letter like that. As he's like, I mean, because Stannis is like tactically genius with war and battle and all that. But when it comes to like kind of personal manipulation and tricks and deception, that doesn't really strike me as Stannis's work. Um, and so I think I kind of think it's Ramsay, and just some of the information is wrong. Like I don't think Stannis is dead. I think Stannis is actually going to win Winterfell, which is everything that's happening up there. Which I guess is another thing I should probably talk about entirely. Um, but yeah, with the pink letter, I think Ramsay wrote it and just got some things wrong. Whether those were intentional or not, who's to say? Um, Perhaps we'll never find out. But yeah, yeah, I guess up in Winterfell now, one thing I liked about the pink letter is it kind of confirmed Mance being there. Uh, Maybe it confirmed that Mance was there beforehand and I just missed it, but because like the people start dying in Winterfell, and this is all from Theon's perspective. Like one by one, people start dying, and it's pretty mysterious as to how they're dying, and pretty random. And then they're like those girls that Theon is talking to, and it's I don't know, seems pretty likely that they're doing it. And basically, while that whole thing was happening, inside I was just thinking like, it's Mance, Mance is here, it's Mance. And so, the pink letter kind of confirmed that it was Mance and his spear wives, and so I was like so happy about them. Like I got it right, I knew it was Mance. And I mean, I guess it's not like outright confirmed that he was the one that was killing all of them, but I think it's fairly obvious that he killed like all of them except with the one Frey boy, what was it, Big Walder Frey, I think that's the exception where it might not have been Mance, and I think there's possibly another party at play with that one. So yeah, but I just think the Winterfell stuff is so interesting, just because I feel like there's so much going on in there. Because like, I mean, Mance ended up being there. Stannis is going to attack it, and then what's his name? Manderly, is that the right one? He's got his whole plot to betray the Boltons, and because he like sent Davos to, I think Davos was gonna go find Rickon, is what I think. Yeah, but I just feel like there's so much going on in the north, and I'm so interested in that because I don't think the Boltons stand a chance. I think there's just so much going on that, like, there's just so many sides that are secret and unknown to the Boltons, and I think it's all gonna come crashing down on them, like from all fronts. You got Stannis, you got Manderly, and I'm sure there's probably a little bit more there. So yeah, I think the Boltons are gonna lose that battle. I don't know what the battle's called, like Battle for Winterfell or Battle of Ice or whatever it's called. And I guess that kind of leads me to another thing I didn't like, is like, because Davos had some chapters in the first half, but then he goes off on the request of Manderly, was it to find the heir of Winterfell, which I think he's going to find Rickon. That's what I think, because like obviously Bran and Rickon are alive, but Bran is beyond the wall. so it seems kind of impossible for Bran to come into play there. And we haven't heard about Rickon. I don't remember what book it was, but since Rickon and Bran departed, so I think Davos is gonna go find Rickon, and that's how Rickon's gonna come back into play in the story, honestly. But I was kind of disappointed that his story left off halfway through this book. I was hoping we could get a continuation of that, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, this is already a long book. There's a lot to cover, so it probably makes sense that that was cut out. I also liked how the characters from A Feast for Crows eventually kind of entered the story. Like, you get to a point in, I think the first one is Arya, and I just think it was cool how those characters kind of came into play in this book. I don't think there's anything specifically that I want to mention. It was good stuff. I feel like we finally got closure on Cersei's story in Feast for Crows with her having to do the Walk of Atonement and all that. I think it was kind of lacking in the Arya chapters because, like, what, there were like 2 of them? I don't know. It was like, I feel like those probably could have been put in A Feast for Crows and like not in this. Because obviously, like, Sansa didn't have chapters in this, along with a few other characters. And I feel like that could have been the same for Arya, just because, like, it was such minimal stuff we got with Arya, and I feel like, I don't know, it wasn't super relevant. So I feel like that could have been stuck with just like the rest of the Arya chapters in A Feast for Crows. But still, I loved them. I like Arya's chapters, so those were nice. I think Jaime got a chapter. Yeah, frankly, I don't remember his chapter. He went off with Brienne. That's about what I remember. I think Cersei's were probably the standout in this, just because it felt like it was kind of a close to her story from A Feast for Crows, which I think was good, to finally kind of get closure there. I mean, it ended on a pretty good note in Feast for Crows, but finally getting like that extra little bit in here was nice. What, that new character that's introduced, that's a member of the Kingsguard. I don't remember what his name was, but I'm like 99% sure certain that that's the Mountain. I feel like the show kind of confirms that almost. So that's interesting, and I'm interested to see where that goes, and all that story. All in all, I think I've pretty much said everything I wanted to. It was a good book. I very much enjoyed it. And I know there's still a few books in this world left. Like, there's, what, Dunk and Egg. There's like a History, a Fire and Blood. I don't know if Fire and Blood might be a work in progress. I'm not sure. But those are just some of the books that I've heard thrown out there. And I'll definitely get to them eventually. But I think for now, I kind of want to read other things and kind of leave this year. But I'll definitely come back to those books eventually. But for now, I'm gonna read other books. I think to conclude this video, I'll just say kind of what my thoughts are, like, having finished it, because it was really good, and I'm glad I was able to read it. But now, like, having finished the series, having finished The Song of Ice and Fire, besides the 2 that haven't come out, it's, I don't know, left me in a very interesting place. Because, like, as soon as I finished it, I found myself, like, missing it. Because it's such a big series, of course, and it takes anyone who reads it a long time, a substantial amount of time. Like, I mean, I read pretty closely to a book a month. That's, what, 5 books, 5 months, almost half a year that I've been reading this. Actually, no, it has been half a year, because I took 2 months with this last one. So I've been reading this for 6 months. So I've been in this world for a long time. And so finally having finished it and being done with it feels really strange. And it left me in a place, like, almost like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, what am I supposed to read? Like, nothing I read is gonna come close to this. How can I read another book again? I don't know, just overall missing this series. And because it's a really good series, and I really enjoyed it, and now having finished it and it being over, it's just kind of, I don't know, a little bit sad, a little bit somber, I guess. But hopefully Winds of Winter will come out, right? Eventually, right? Right? So, we'll see. But yeah, I think those are my final thoughts on the book. I definitely recommend, if you love the show, give it a try. It's a really good read. I recommend taking it slowly and just enjoying every part of it. I think that's the best way to read it, just because if you're reading it to finish it, you physically can't, because there are 2 books not out yet. But yeah, I recommend. I can't wait to see what Martin does in those 2 books, if they ever come out. And yeah, that's the end of this video.